It's a little hard to do very quickly and spontaneously. Nali, just to be sure, how are we on time?
We're good. I think those of us who stayed this long will be excited to hear your conclusion and then also listen to Gigi sing her jazz tribute.
Okay, great.
Thanks, Jim.
Um, there are a lot of different approaches that each of these groups took and that the reports took, but they all circle around certain things that I could see. There's an enormous desire to be agents of change and to inspire other people to change, and not so surprising because we're a somewhat self-selected audience here. This was advertised for people who have these issues, or these interests. But I think that what's interesting to me about what everybody was talking about is that if you try to sort of sum it up in a way, those who experience social injustice or inequality should generally be working hard to get into places where they can raise awareness. I think that was the common theme, whether it's a workplace or a religious place or a social organization. The best way to have an impact on other people is to be involved with other people, so that they trust you and care about you. And we heard a lot about people who are looking for sympathetic environments where they can speak out and do things. On the other hand, at the same time, those who have more privilege and power need to learn to be more aware and empathetic about the problems that are all around them that they've sort of chosen not to deal with. And that includes those of us in this meeting who, are lucky enough to have a little money and a little free time. And perhaps other people need to learn the same things. Many of them are less interested in finding out about this, but increasing people's awareness, like, how could you not notice the little kid trying to cross the street? There are plenty of people who wouldn't notice, or if they did notice, they would say, I'm too busy, I have to be somewhere else, leave the kid there, right? People feel pain. It impels those who can to do some good, and it impels those who are feeling the pain but not able to do much about it directly to speak out. And speaking out in any context when you see unfairness or inequality is essential, because you got to call out the people who aren't sensitive enough to see that there's a problem. I would just kind of recall something that I didn't have the best relationship with my father when I was a kid, because I was one of those people who was always complaining about social injustice or the problems of the world. And he didn't care, and he didn't see why, I had to be constantly harping on the negative and so on. And over the years, there were two things that he said to me. He thought he was giving me useful advice. I hated hearing this. Number one was, you're too sensitive. And number two was, you think too much. And all I remember, responding to that is, well, why wouldn't you want to be as sensitive as you can be to what's going on around you? I mean, is your alternative to deliberately shut yourself off from everything that's happening and just not pay attention to the universe? That doesn't sound very interesting as a way of life. And then he'd say, well, you think too much. And, it was the same sort of non-understanding between us, because I would say, well, why wouldn't you want to think as much as necessary about what's going on so you can understand what's happening in the world and make sense of it and maybe do something about it? And his attitude seemed to be, well, if you don't pay attention to what's happening, if you don't think about it very much, then you won't feel any responsibility to do anything. And you'll just be able to go about your business and become a rich millionaire and go have a big house in the suburbs. And I would say, yeah, but I don't want those things. What I want is I can't help being aware of the problems of the world, and I can't help thinking about them. So I'm going to cultivate my sensibility and my thought process in my education so I can do something about it. And this was our fundamental disagreement, and it's really two very different kinds of people. Most of the folks on this screen at the moment are the ones who are somewhat aware of what's going on and are somewhat dissatisfied and do think about these things. So that means that we all have a responsibility to go to places where we can speak out about what it is we think needs to be done, because a lot of other people are just not going to say so. And if we cannot be spokespeople and, civil rights lawyers or full-time political activists, giving money to the millions of organizations is also very important, because those organizations don't have money. They are by definition representing the people who are at the low end of the totem pole. And so if you're a little higher on the totem pole, fork it over, support the people who are doing the things that you would like to see done. If you can do part of it yourself, fabulous. If you can't, for whatever reason, support those who do, right? And that's where I would leave it. That I'm preaching to the choir here, I think, because most of us already feel this sense of social responsibility. But the things you can do are to let the rest of the world know that you feel this way and inspire them to see things in a different way.